In the heart of New York City, where the skyscrapers reached for the heavens and the cold winds of winter whispered through the concrete canyons, the city was a maze of perpetual motion. It was a time when the festive lights of Christmas should have warmed the hearts of many, but instead they seemed to highlight the stark contrast between the haves and the have-nots. This was the tale of an unlikely savior and an unseen soul, set against the backdrop of a city that often forgot to see. The streets were crowded with people, their breaths forming clouds in the frosty air, their warm coats a contrast to the thin, tattered blanket wrapped around a young girl named Mia. She was barely 14, her eyes large and weary, reflecting the harshness of a life lived on the edge of survival. Mia had been on these streets for months now, each day a battle against the cold, hunger, and the indifference of the masses that flowed around her, like a river around a rock. Mia huddled in a doorway on Fifth Avenue, where the holiday shoppers bustled past, their eyes fixed on window displays or their phones, never really seeing her. The snow began to fall, a gentle dusting at first, but it soon turned into a relentless shower, blanketing the city in white. The cold seeped into her bones, and she pulled her blanket tighter around her, her teeth chattering. The sound of laughter and carols filled the air, but for Mia it was just another evening of solitude. People walked by, their steps quickening as if they could outpace the cold, but none stopped to offer her even a glance of compassion. It was as if she were invisible, a ghost in the midst of the living. Amidst this urban indifference, a figure moved through the crowd with an air of purpose, yet not the hurried kind. He was tall for his age, with an air of seriousness that was rare in someone so young. Barron Trump, known to many for his last name's weight in politics, walked with a thoughtful gaze, far removed from the bustling energy around him. He had come to New York for the holidays, seeking a reprieve from the constant scrutiny and the gilded cage of his life. Barron's eyes, unlike those of the others, caught the sight of Mia. He paused, the world around him blurring as he focused on her shivering form. Something in him stirred, a mix of compassion and the desire to escape the narrative his last name had written for him. He approached her, the crowd parting around him as if he were a stone dropped into still water. "Are you okay?" Barron's voice was soft, almost hesitant, the first kind words Mia had heard in days. Mia looked up, her eyes meeting his, reflecting shock more than the cold. I, I'm cold," she managed to say, her voice hoarse from disuse. Barron didn't hesitate. He took off his expensive wool coat and draped it over her. "Here, this should help. What's your name?" "Mia," she whispered, clutching the coat that smelled of warmth and a life far removed from her own. Barron sat beside her, ignoring the cold, the stares, and the whispers of recognition from passers-by. He spoke to her, not as a Trump, but as Barron, a boy who understood, at least in part, the loneliness of being seen but not truly known. The conversation between Barron and Mia was simple, yet profound. Mia shared stories of her life, fragmented by tragedy and loss, while Barron listened, his face a canvas of empathy. He asked about her dreams, which seemed so out of reach under the harsh New York sky, and Mia spoke of a world where she could be warm, safe, and perhaps one day, someone to be seen. Barron, in turn, spoke of his own battles, the golden prison of expectation, the loneliness of being watched but never truly seen. They found common ground in their isolation, their words creating a bubble of warmth in the midst of winter's chill. As the night deepened, Barron knew he couldn't leave Mia to the elements. He called for assistance, not from his family's resources, but from his own heart. He arranged for a shelter, one of the few that took in children alone, ensuring Mia had a place to rest, a meal, and a promise of more help. The next day, headlines screamed about the young Trump's act of kindness, but Barron did not seek the limelight. Instead, he visited Mia at the shelter, bringing with him clothing, books, and a plan for her future. Together, they worked with social services to find a more permanent solution, something that would give Mia a chance at reclaiming her life. This act of kindness was not the end, but a beginning. For Mia, it was a door open to possibilities she had thought long closed. For Barron, it was a moment of genuine connection, a reminder that his name could mean something more than political legacy. Years later, Mia would tell her story, not as one of tragedy, but of transformation. She would speak of Barron not as a trump, but as a friend, the boy who gave her back her humanity on a cold New York night. And Barron, in turn, would remember that evening as the moment he chose to be more than his name suggested. In the heart of New York, where the cold could be as biting as the ambition that fueled its relentless pace, the story of Barron and Mia stood as a testament to the warmth that human connection could bring, even in the most frigid of winters. The news of Barron's act of kindness spread like wildfire, not just through the city, but across the nation, and even beyond. It was a story that, in a world often cynical about the intentions of the wealthy, resonated deeply. Social media buzzed with discussions, and suddenly, Barron's blanket, as it was dubbed, became a symbol of hope and charity. Inspired by this act, a movement began. People across New York, from all walks of life, started to take notice of the Mias on their streets. A charity was formed in Barron's name, though he insisted it be about the cause, not the name. Barron's blanket aimed to provide not just warmth, but opportunities for the homeless youth, offering education, shelter, and vocational training. Mia, now with a semblance of stability, became an advocate for the charity. Her story, once one of invisibility, now shone as a beacon of what could be achieved with a little help and a lot of heart. She spoke at events, her voice gaining strength with each word, sharing her journey from the cold streets to a place where she was not just seen, but valued. Barron, too, found his life changing. His parents, despite their political views, were proud of his initiative, though they were wary of the media's focus on their son. Barron, however, used this attention wisely. He worked with the charity, not as a figurehead, but as an active participant, learning about the complexities of poverty, addiction, and the systemic issues that led to homelessness. The Trump family, known for their opulence, now hosted fundraisers that were less about show and more about substance. Barron's mother, Melania, in particular, took an active role, finding a new passion in philanthropy. The events were unique. They weren't just galas, but meetings where the wealthy could hear directly from those they were helping, fostering a real understanding and connection. As the next winter approached, New York City was noticeably different. The streets were no less cold, but the warmth of community had grown. Volunteers, spurred by Barron's example, patrolled the streets, offering blankets, hot meals, and information on where to find help. The city's harshness was still there, but now there were pockets of hope where before there had been only despair. Mia, now with a part-time job at the charity and enrolled in night classes, walked those same streets where she once slept. She saw the change, felt it in the lessening chill of indifference. She and Barron would occasionally meet, their friendship now a bond that transcended their initial encounter. Together, they planned bigger, dreaming of a city where everyone had a place to call home. Years passed and Barron's blanket grew into a national organization, but it never lost its heart. Barron, now in college, studied social work, determined to understand and enact real change. His name, once a byword for controversy, now stood for compassion. Mia, on her part, completed her education, becoming a community organizer, her life a testament to the power of one act of kindness. She often spoke of how a single gesture could alter the course of a life, her life being the prime example. In the end, it wasn't just about one cold winter night in New York. It was about the enduring warmth of human connection, the kind that could thaw the coldest of hearts. Barron and Mia's story became a legend in the city, a reminder that, in the most unexpected places, from the most unexpected people, light could shine through the darkest of times. Their tale was woven into the fabric of New York, a city known for its relentless pace, now also known for moments of profound stillness where one soul reached out to another. And as each winter came, the story was retold, not in the cold light of headlines, but in the warm glow of acts of kindness that continued to spread, like ripples from a stone dropped into the vast ocean of humanity.